This episode is brought to you by the PowerMonkey Training app. Now, out of all of the cool things that we do with PowerMonkey, whether that be our camps, or our retreats, or in-person events, the thing that I'm most excited about and our team is most excited about is our new PowerMonkey Training app. The new one will have a complete redesign and a lot of cool new features that you haven't been able to access yet. There's really 4 categories of training skills depending on who you are as an athlete. The first one is probably the one that you're most familiar with, are skill plans. How do you learn a strict pull-up, a handstand, a muscle-up? They're all assessment-based. We put you into the correct level according to what your starting point is, and you build plans from there. The couple new ones that we're really excited about, one is our volume plan. So volume plans will be based for those athletes that are learning capacity around skill-specific training. So if you're an athlete out there looking to take that one muscle up and build it into 3, 5, 10, 20, and beyond, we have a plan to help build capacity around skill-specific training. Very, very unique, very different, something that we're new offering, really excited about. Additionally, we have our GPP plan for gymnastics. We call it our monkey method plan. This is a well-rounded gymnastics plan that you can be accessing on a beginner, intermediate, or advanced level. Beginner and intermediate are 3 days a week. Our advanced is up to 6 days a week. You'll be doing handstands, mobility, core work, bar, ring. It's a well-rounded plan around becoming more capable and confident around gymnastics movements. Our last types of plans will be our 365 plans, and these are bite-sized plans that can be incorporated into any training plan, starting with our core 365, something that's been in the app for a while, but a new feature is that we're going to be putting up one workout a day for free on the app. All you need to do is download and register, and you will get a free workout every single day that is core specific, between 5 and 10 minutes long, that you can incorporate into your training. It's a great starting point, and there'll be more of these 365 plans that help create a more well-rounded training experience. Come train with us with the PowerMonkey Training app. We think you guys are going to love it. Welcome to the PowerMonkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host this week being Jordan Samuel, and our special guest is Jay Leydon, the owner and founder of CrossFit Milford, and we are going to be breaking down what we just saw, 23.1, the open announcement, the start of the 2023 season, going over a workout that is a repeat from 14.4, get in some nitty-gritty about what the workout calls for, how to strategize around it, and maybe some predictions around it. Enjoy. All right, everyone, we are ready to go for this open announcement. Just finished up watching the stud athletes out of Madrid do this one. Quick little repeat and going over what the workout is. It is a repeat of 14.4, 14-minute chipper, 60 cal on the row, 50 toes to bar, 40 wall ball shots, 20 and 14, with a slight little new variation on the standard with regards to the wall ball. 30 cleans at 135, 95, and then 20 muscle ups. And obviously continuing through that for a full 14 minutes. We have 2 guests here helping out going through this one. We got my main man, Jordan, who's normally on with us, and then Jay Leydon from CrossFit Milford on with us to give a little strategy on the coaching side, what he's going to be doing with his athletes, and maybe give us a little insight into what he'd be doing himself if he's doing a workout. Welcome, boys. Jay, start with you real quick. Are you doing this workout, or are you just going to be monitoring your kick-ass athletes and how they do?
No, I'm going to do it. You know, I love this workout, and it actually shocked me when they first said it. I was honestly could have bet like burpees and shuttle runs, or just something that was like
shuttle runs.
Yeah, something that was just like so simple that no matter what the entire population would be able to do it, it just came down to how hard you could push, right? And then you get all the stipulation with the backwards arrow, right? And 23.1 backwards is 13.2 or whatever, however you want to phrase it, right? But I could have sworn it would have been something like that. But when they came out with this workout, I was pumped because I remember really enjoying this workout and having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, I do every open workout. I get after it.
So that's my first question. Do you remember doing this workout 10 years ago? Both of you guys. Jordan, do you remember doing it? And Jay, for whatever reason, I just had a conversation about this workout with somebody like 2 days ago, and I remember it fairly vividly, but I'm curious if you guys remember where you were and how it went for you.
I mean, I remember the workout coming out and coaching people through it, but I actually don't recall doing this workout myself. Yeah, I don't recall it, to be honest with you.
Oh, I remember it. Yeah, I remember seeing it and be like, oh man, I'm I'm going to do well on this. And I blazed the row. Toe to bar, 50 reps for me when this workout came out was a lot for me. So I did my best with managing that. Did good in the wall balls, cleans with the cleans. The cleans hit me harder than I thought. And cleans going into muscle ups definitely got me. I was never really like amazing at muscle ups, but I could get them done. And I remember the muscle ups being like, oh, this is tough right now. I obviously did not get back to the rower, but I remember Rich, like the announcer said, got to the total bar. And I remember seeing Rich's score and just being like, what in the world? Like, how could that man possibly have done that? Even way back then, like you look at it, that was 10 years ago. What did
He beat him by like 2 reps.
2 reps.
Dude just got him by like 2 reps. Yeah.
2 reps. And I'm sure there's going to be people who are going to do more than that. But the fact that BKG and Lasik like didn't like smash it from 10 years ago is amazing to me.
Yeah, Rich is still an anomaly in this world of freaks. But I remember doing this one too. I ended up doing it twice, and I'm not a multiple open workout doer, but this was like one of the first workouts where like there were a lot of muscle ups and I loved it. And I was always like just always angry that they would put the gymnastics movement at the end of these workouts. Like, put them in the beginning. I wanted them to do this reversed. Start with the muscle ups, create some real separation between everybody, and then we'll see everybody does. They always put the high skill gymnastics move at the end, and I'm like, I never get there. I never get a chance to actually. I'm still stuck on the rower, son of a bitch. Like, give me a chance to show off my skill. But I remember doing this and being like, I got to like 18 muscle ups, and I was like so close to being able. And I did it a second time, and I changed up my strategy, I think, and I still think I got to 18. Maybe I may have gotten back to the rower, like got one cal, but I was right around finishing the full round. So I love this workout. I would love to see it reversed and start with muscle ups, but
they
it was
did that with
interesting
one
to see
of one of the open workouts. It started with Karen, and then you do 90 double unders, and you had 30 muscle ups. And I think a few years later they flipped it, and you had to do the muscle ups first, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
Did you do that?
Yeah, it was a good move.
I bet if they started muscle ups, so many people would open up just unbroken.
With the muscle ups?
Nowadays, like people would
Yeah.
fly like 15-5 done on the cleans. It'd be insane.
It would change things quite a bit in terms of how to strategize. And that's where I want to start with you, Jay, in terms of overall strategy. You mentioned how you would strategize it around your strengths and weaknesses. You're a big dude. What are you, 6'4"?
6'2". Thank you, though.
I always give you a couple extra inches there. From my vantage point, you look like 6'8". So 6'2", long limbs, row wall balls, right in your wheelhouse. Gymnastics movements, maybe a little bit more of a struggle. But if you're having your athletes, it's going to be dependent on their strengths and weaknesses. But how would you have them tackle this as kind of a global common? If you're working with your members at the gym, would you say that there is a good strategy to kind of use as a template and then kind of build off of for individuals?
Yeah, totally. And I'm going to try not to kind of ramble too much on this. So I apologize if I do, but I'll just sort of kind of go with it. I look at this as a 14-minute AMRAP and thinking about the workout in its entirety, 60 cal row. And if I talk about the athletes competing for the CrossFit Games, not the general population, then in my mind, they should be pretty well versed in an 85 to 90% effort on the row and what that's going to feel like for them. And if I think about 60 calories in a row for some of these athletes, right, I'm thinking for that's going to be probably, like 2.5-ish minutes, 3 minutes, depending on the person. And that shouldn't smoke them. They should be able to get off that and be pretty comfortable. But the key for that is understanding grip and grip fatigue, because you got to transfer from that to the total bar. So you got to understand that the major fatigue factors with the row, with the first part of the workout, is going to be your grip, because you don't want to get on those toes of bar and go to a point where failure is hard. You want to be able to maintain big, manageable sets that are never going to break down in that approach. So what I'm going to say for them is come on that row, get out fast, push it, get the rhythm to where it needs to be, then settle down, catch your breath, relax your grip on the rower. And in the last 10 cals, sort of ease back on the throttle just a little bit to preserve the grip. From there, you're going to go into toes to bar. And I look at 50 toes to bar, and a lot of these people, that's going to probably be 10s and 15s. Some of the really high level people, shorter leg length, strong hip flexor capacity, might even do like 20, 25 and break it down into 15 and go from there. I think when Rich came out in this 10 years ago, I think he opened with like 20 or 25 on that workout 10 years ago and maintained pretty high volume there. But you really want to be able to manage the toes of bar around your fatigue limiters with the hip flexors, lats, and grip on that motion.
Okay,
For a lot of these guys,
Jay, before you continue forward, let's just stop at those 2 points. I want to make a couple comments. One, what we just saw Ducic do, I think, is a good kind of point to discuss. One, because he came out super hot on the row. Jordan, what did he end up being? What was his pace on that first 60 cal?
209.
So 209. I mean, he was blazing on that first one. You know, we're not expecting most people, everyday gym, to be anywhere near that. But you're mentioning a lot of grip and grip being a factor in the toes to bar, and I think it absolutely is. He ended up he did 25 toes to bar on his first set, and then afterwards mentioned that he thought it ended up being too big of a set for himself, and that if he was to repeat this, he would end up doing 15, 15, 10, 10. And he's coming from a Mayhem athlete training program that does a shit ton of toes to bar. So that's an athlete that has good grip strength, awesome on the row, and still felt that the 25 was probably too big for him. So in my estimation, it's probably smarter for athletes, even quality athletes on toes to bar, to start with smaller chunks, start with maybe 15 and 10s, and then kind of, or just, 5 sets of 10 and just stick with something that's consistent for you. The point I wanted to ask about, you mentioned grip being a huge factor, and I agree with you, but I think a bigger factor here is lats, like pull down, like fatigue when it comes to being able to compress. Like if you're going from the row and pull, and you're an athlete that does more of a lat activated toes to bar, your toes to bar are going to fatigue really, really quickly. And yes, the grip, but also your ability to actually pull down on the bar. So if you don't have a really good hip flexor and you're not good at compression based toes to bar, you rely more on that idea of bar to toes. We actually just did another podcast talking about this with another athlete. That's going to crush you. So it's going to go right from like obviously grip, but also pull right into a pull. You need to be thinking more about trying to get the hip flexors a little bit more involved on your toes to bar if you can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that also you got to think about the fact that the next movement you have coming up is a wall ball, which is going to use some hip flexors too, with some of that. But one of the things I really like to take into consideration when doing larger sets of something like the toe to bar is I like to do descending sets all the way. I would never hop on and be like, I'm going to do 5 sets of 10. I'm going to come on and do like a set of 12, then a set of 11, then a set of 10, 9, 8, just because I know that each set's going to feel harder than the previous set, So that's another thing that I like to take into consideration a lot when I'm doing these larger chunks and I'm trying to manage fatigue, because to Jay's point, like I think this idea of 85% effort on the row or intensity rather is a great strategy to have all the way through, and a great way to keep that, rate of perceived exertion and whatnot is to like just keep on reducing the size of the sets that you have to be doing throughout. So yeah.
So the only other thing I wanted to mention, I would encourage viewers of the Open to go watch it again and watch the cycle times and the actual movement pattern of Goodmanson versus Laura right next to each other. And they were really different toes to bar. And Laura uses a pretty aggressive swing, really aggressive into a really large arch, and allows the momentum of the swing to do a lot of the work for her, which is great because it doesn't rely as much strength. It relies much more on the swing, but the cycle time is much more increased. So she ends up being on the bar for a lot longer period of time. So it's this back and forth. Goodmanson, on the other hand, really compact, much more compression based, like a gymnast like he is or was, but the cycle time is much more compact. So he was actually able to make up a ton of time on Ducic on the toes to bar because of how compressed he was. It's just a nice visual to see those two side by side. One much more swing based that'll keep you on the bar longer, but the cycle time's longer, versus one that's more compact. So I think you need to be thinking about that in terms of where your strengths and weaknesses are as an athlete.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think something that's so important that we talk about at the Power Monkey camps and all the coaches talk about is the idea of understanding the movement in its natural form. I'm going to say, what I mean by natural form is in the strictest position possible. How should that movement be performed? And it's so important to, I'm going to say master, but what is the level of mastery? But it's so important to dial in that aspect of the movement, because only then can you gain the information and knowledge of yourself and how to manipulate that movement when combined with different dynamic contractions that can elicit more fatigue, right? And I think, like you were saying, Dave, around the different flow of the total bar between lat dominance to hip dominance is something that's so critical for people to understand. But you're not going to really understand that unless you understand how to do that movement correctly in its natural form. And then you can look to adapt and manipulate it around other areas that you have fatigue. And I think that's something that's so important for coaches and athletes to understand, why it's pivotal to understand those concepts.
I love that, Jay, and it just fits into the way that we teach things. And we normally use the wording around highest level version of the movement rather than you said natural form. You know, what to us, you know, toes to bar is strict is kind of the highest level version of that. In your case, saying natural movement, but I couldn't agree more that a high level athlete, higher level coach needs to understand how to break this down and apply different types of the movement according to what the workout calls for.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Sorry to jump through there, but go on to the next piece there.
No, that's great. So for me, for higher level athletes, I view the wall ball and cleans as a means of what the athletes can do to get through the muscle ups fast. That's where I look at it. Because 40 wall balls at the new requirement to me isn't a big issue. Both athletes went unbroken, both male athletes went unbroken. And Jordan, did the female athletes go unbroken as well?
I don't believe so, but I can't say with certainty.
But that's something that is unbroken or 2 sets at the max for these people. And if they do break, it's just a quick break to, depending on how long they're on the total bar, and their shoulders will experience fatigue. That's the way I look at it. So wall balls are kind of there in the mix, just to kind of throw another move in there, in my opinion. And then cleans, to me, are singles, because you want to keep fast singles to preserve the grip for the muscle ups. You don't want to get in a habit where, because it is a lighter weight for these athletes, we start touching and going at where you're going to experience a lot of fatigue, shoulders, lats, grip, hip flexors, which can all resort in a harder muscle up. And the better you can get through the cleans at a quick pace while mitigating unnecessary fatigue, the better you're going to get through the muscle ups. And I think what we're going to see for a lot of athletes is how efficiently they train and practice the muscle up from a lockout perspective is going to give some indication of how quickly they can finish, like in my opinion, the back 6 muscle ups, where people who they get fatigue in training, if they cut that muscle up short and don't really lock it out or train that lockout position, they're not going to have that when they get fatigued. And I think by pushing the cleans too much, fatigue around the shoulders, the forearms, the lats can catch up to you a lot with trying to preserve the bar path, which can create more fatigue and make the muscle-ups a lot harder. So I see that 40 and 30 of the wall balls and cleans as being a way for the athletes to get through that while preserving enough in the tank to crush those muscles, because you have to get through the muscles fast if you want to get back to the row and put some damage on there with, you know, for the elite of the elite, potential getting back to the total bar.
I think that's a really great strategy for the athletes they probably work with. I am not going to do 40 wall balls unbroken in that situation. And I assume that a lot of other people aren't either. If you have an everyday person at your gym, is this same idea, like break them up wherever you want? Jordan, break them up in descending chunks if you need to, so you feel like you have some in the tank as the fatigue starts to increase later down the road. I can't imagine that most athletes are going to actually be able to sustain 40 unbroken at that point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if I'm talking to like myself or normal gym goers, I'm gonna probably do 10s. Like I might push the row. I might do 5s on the total bar. You know, long legs, short, weak hip flexors, right? So I'll do 5s on the total bar. Wall balls, I'm gonna say maintain fast 5s and 10s, clean singles, and then muscle ups. It's whatever you got when you get there.
Yeah, Jordan, would you be able to keep 40 unbroken out of that?
God, no, but I think probably something. I think 20s are reasonable. Maybe 2 sets of 20 or 25 and 15 on the wall ball. I think a wall ball is a pretty manageable movement even after the other movements. And you know, Jay talking about the singles on the clean, I fully agree. I will say that Laura and Gabby came out and they did a set of 5. And then they went to singles. And I think that that's not a bad strategy, because one of the things that I think the clean, if you try to do larger sets on, yeah, it'll affect your grip. But I think what it will really do is they'll jack your heart rate up even more. And that's not something you want going into the wall balls. But if you come out right after the wall ball and you do a set of 5 and then go to singles, you've got, a whole bunch of singles that you have time to let your heart rate go back down and relax before you get to the wall ball, before you get to the muscle up. So I think it's almost like a little free sprint on the first small chunk of cleans to just get a few reps out of the way. Yeah,
that's a good point. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, if you think about the wall balls, we've timed this out a lot. Doing like 20 and 20 versus 4 sets of fast 10s with a shorter break really isn't that big of a time difference when it's done. That's just for people to think about. It's like rowing, right? If you smashing like a 500-meter row versus backing off a little bit, really isn't, what is it, 5-10 seconds for a lot of people? It's really not that big of a time difference. But what people have to think about is what's going to be the accumulating fatigue from the extra push, and for the wall balls of doing 2 sets versus 3 or 4 sets for you, is that something that's going to add more shoulder fatigue, which can make the muscle ups a lot harder? That's something that people will have to think about.
I fully agree with that. And I think that in large part, my guiding, thought in my head throughout all of this is you should be going through this workout with an intensity and a number of breaks and so forth in it, such that when you finish a movement, you should be able to go right to the next movement and start right away. You shouldn't be going so hard on the row that you have to wait 15 to 20 seconds before you start your toe to bar, and going so hard and big on the sets on the toe to bar that you have to wait 15 to 20 seconds before you start the wall balls and so forth. Maybe before you start the muscle ups, you want to give yourself a little bit more rest, because the worst thing you can do is start failing muscle ups, because that's going to just increase your fatigue tremendously. So to your point, Jay, I think that your intensity and the way that you break up the sets should be such that you can just keep moving through the workout all the way through without taking any huge breaks between movements. Yes, you'll have to take some rest in the middle of the movements, but those are manageable and small. But you should be able to get to the next movement and just go right into it. And that's kind of how I'm going to tackle it tomorrow when I do this workout. So
I think that's a great point, Jordan. And I think Dujas did that really well. In fact, he was almost running in the transitions in the beginning, which is just insane. But you could tell Sean was making a very considered effort to mention how quick his transition times were from exercise to exercise, which is impressive to watch. It's a really good point. And I think it just falls in line with what you're talking about, keeping the heart rate as steady as possible rather than having these shocking increases in heart rate because, you're trying to rip off a couple more reps when your body really can't probably manage it.
Yeah. And I also think, to kind of just make one more little point about that, when you're really exhausted and you've got to take a rest, your mind isn't paying attention to how long you're actually resting for. And you think you've rested for 5, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, but you've really rested for 15 to 20 seconds. When you're just taking a short rest to catch like 1 or 2 breaths, but you're in control and you're not smashed, it's very clear to you how long you've been resting. And so when you're smashed and you're trying to rest, you're just accumulating so much more time that you think you're not accumulating in resting form, not accumulating reps. So I think that another positive about just managing those larger sets and making them smaller with more rest is that you can actually be more aware of how much time you are actually resting for.
Yeah. Let's just jump on the last movement here, because I have some things to say about the muscle up. As you yeah, as probably know. First thing to note for all the viewers out there that watched the Open announcement, Gudmundsson was the only one that put a mat underneath the rings. And all the rings were set up at the same height, and he was the only one, even with the females, that put a mat underneath him to be able to jump up at a reasonable height. And I think this is important. You need to set up the rings in a situation where you can hang freely with your feet not touching the ground, but where it's an easy jump for you. If you watch Gabby finishing her last set, she came off those rings. She was exhausted, but she fell back. And it was like one of those things where you could hurt yourself pretty bad if you're fatigued at that point and you're coming off a high set of rings. Not to mention jumping up to rings and being able to control them takes unnecessary added energy if those rings are way outside of your grasp. These are little things that make big differences in terms of what you need to do to get set up for each of those reps, especially if muscle ups are a problem for you. Additionally, Gudmundsson had 3 no reps in his first 2 sets. His first set of 6, I think maybe 5 or 6, he was no rep twice, came down, shook it out, jumped back up, did another set, and he was no repped again. His no reps were with regards to something that I feel strongly should have been no reps, but everybody was doing something very similar. And it's about not fully locking out and showing support at the top of the completion of the movement. So they made a point of this earlier in the season too, being able to actually keep your shoulder on top of the strap, and when you push back, your shoulder not being behind the strap. And Goodmanson's judge was being critical on him with that particular movement. You could see him getting frustrated, but it was correct. The only thing is the other judges were not doing the same because the other athletes were doing the exact same thing. So consistency around that is going to be really important to make sure that all athletes are being judged fairly. My question to you guys is the thing that I think that would help this a ton, and I brought it up when I did some of the announcement at Wadapalooza with Sean and Chase during that synchro bar ring muscle up workout, was that at the top of the ring muscle up, the completion of the movement should be showing the rings and external rotation of the rings. Instead of internally rotating and resting your arms up in the straps and just pushing back, a way to assist in showing that you're fully completing the movement is actually turning the ring out, which will actually force the athlete to show support more. So in my mind, a way to kind of enforce this completing of the movement on top of the rings, you have to flash the rings. You have to show the palm of the hand in the same direction as your eye line to show completion of the movement. Do you think that that's a fair addition to a standard here? Or do you think it's just not possible for us to be able to actually implement that?
Yeah, I think it's a great, point to make about the movement. It is something that, people are just becoming more and more egregious with over time. So your idea of having to flash the palms forward and external rotation of the shoulders and so forth makes a lot of sense. I think it's reasonable to think that you could do that with the flashing of the hands as part of the critique for the completion of a movement. But you probably get some pushback from athletes for sure, because
you're right, there will be pushback, but what they're doing right now is egregious is the right word. It's just getting worse. The movement pattern has not improved over time, and that's what you see across the board. Like, athletes' movement patterns has increased almost across the board with their ability with a barbell in hand, or their sprinting technique, or how good they are at rope climbs. The muscle ups have gotten worse because they've allowed them to get worse. Their capacity is stronger. You can stay up on the rings. Their grip is better, and they're able to use the swing more. But their completion of the movement has gotten worse because no one's enforced a completion that is actually showing me that they're actually in a support and they're actually completing the movement. Jay, what do you view it from a coaching side?
So I've been on both sides of the spectrum from a competitive standpoint, where you get a judge that lets athletes get away with a lot, and you get a judge that doesn't, right? And I've been burned by it and not burned by it. So I think it makes sense to me. I actually kind of like the idea of it, because then it's going to put all people doing muscle ups in a bit more of a level playing field, and it's not going to lead to, obviously there's always judges' discretion as far as what it looks like, but if they have to somewhat turn the palm out, then it's still going to cause some sort of pause up top to show more of a support, because you can't really turn the palm out and be on top of the rings with a bent elbow, or you can't now allow that push way to occur. So I think that levels out to more of a completion of the movement. So I actually kind of like the idea, because I think it just will help to do what all coaches want, is more of a judging capacity that's equal across the field, which is always going to be impossible with the human eye, but it leads that closer to it for that movement.
Yeah, I'm not trying to throw an additional standard out there that's impossible to view or to see. I think this actually makes it more simplified for the judges who don't have a really keen gymnastics eye. It's an easier way to actually show completion of the movement on top of the rings. Yes, shoulder in line with the strap is a good one, but we're not seeing that enforced nearly enough. The palm facing forward would really make it a little bit easier on the judge's eye to be able to say yes or no. So to me, it actually might simplify the process for the judge rather than make it more challenging.
Yeah. I mean, you see some people doing muscle ups with they're pushing away from that ring, and it's they come through, and the second they come through, they're pushing away, you're getting at straightening out their arm, as they're pushing away. Right. And it's impossible to compete against that if you have somebody who isn't allowing that to happen.
Yeah. So that to me needs to be something I think everyone should take a look at. Obviously it was hard for Goodmanson, just couldn't make it up at that point, right? 3 reps at that pace going against best in the world when it comes to stuff. That's needed seconds. He ended up being 10 reps down, I think, finishing 10 reps behind, and 3 muscle up reps actually would have put him relatively in line with what Ducic did. So
Yeah, it actually allowed
just something to
Laura.
consider.
It allowed Laura to pass him on the muscle up and get to the row before BK
Yeah.
did too.
Yeah. So I would just encourage athletes to watch that again, just so they can see exactly what I'm talking about, and maybe watch some muscle ups I've done in the past. And it's not a hard thing to do. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the thing that I think most people miss out on, which we talk about quite a bit, is spending more time and support on something stable to get comfortable there, right? That's why I love the addition of the parallel bars that Boss put in last year, working on getting stable, working on external rotation on something stable, so that when you get to the rings, it's not like, I don't even know what this feels like. I'm super uncomfortable in this position. Yeah, because you've never done it before. Not because it's a harder position, it's more challenging. It's because you've never done it. So start on something more stable, start on parallel bars, apply it to your ring supports so you understand what it's supposed to feel like. And then hopefully it can be something that athletes will have a little bit more understanding in terms of its application. But that to me would make things a little bit easier in terms of universal judging. Not trying to be on soapbox or anything, but I just find it to be something that needs attention, especially as the athletes become more and more capable. Let's try to make sure that the form and the technique always stays at the top of mind. I have a hard time feeling that general population of people that are listening to this podcast are going to make it to the second round. So I don't know if conversations around strategy back to the row, it's more hang on for dear life and get through the 14 minutes at that point. But Jay, anything you'd like to say?
To the second round.
I mean, listen, if you make it back to the second round, if you make it back to the second round, you're just going. You're dropping the hammer. You're just trying to get as far as you can. And if you get through the rower, if you're like that top 0.5% that can get through the rower, they'll, God bless you. Just chip away with whatever you can at the singles, doubles, and triples on the total bar.
We'll see you at the games. Yeah, we'll see you at the games.
Seriously. Yeah, you have an invite to camp too if you get back to the total.
Yeah,
bar.
absolutely.
You get to the wall ball.
You know what, Dave? I think you should, like, you said not to stand on the soapbox. You should stand tall in that soapbox for the ring muscle ups.
Yeah.
You should keep pumping it.
Is that a short joke? Yeah. How tall is this box that we're talking about? Is it on the 30 side? I'm standing on the 30 side of this soapbox.
He's still looking up at Jay though.
Yeah. All right. Before we jump out of here, guys, predictions. Any athlete out there that kind of stands out that is like built for this workout? Rich doing it again.
Rich doing it again. I have two predictions, and I was thinking about this a lot. And for females, I was going between three. First one being obviously Mal O'Brien and Haley Adams. And I actually settled on Danielle Brandon because I like her height on the rower. I like her muscle up capacity, and I like her height on the wall balls and her ability to move a barbell. So I'm going with Danielle Brandon. For guys, I would have four people I was going between. Obviously Roman and Ricky, and I liked Hopper, but I was thinking more about it. And I actually like Travis Mayer in this one because he's just a fucking animal. And I feel like he's someone that would just go.
I'm gonna see how he has on the toe bar. Toes the bar. He's such a big dude. That's a long lever to kind of have to hold up.
He is, but he's someone that would like hit that row in like 2 minutes and just be able to keep that.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep that. Jordan, you got anybody? Oh, the other thing, it was announced today. Haley is not competing this season. So
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, Haley just announced that she will not be competing. She's going to take some time off. And so, unfortunately, we won't get to watch Haley crush this workout. We'll have to wait a little bit of time. But, yeah, we'll keep an eye out for those other athletes. Jordan, anybody that comes to mind for you?
I mean, I'm kind of with Jay on the Mal and Danielle front. I think Mal was immediately come to mind, but his point about Danielle makes a lot of sense. And then, yeah, I mean, I think Lazar's score is going to be pretty close to the top. I mean, that was without any preparation. All these other athletes are going to be preparing for it, but I still think he's going to be right up at the top, and then maybe Roman. Yeah.
Yep.
Just work.
All right, fellas.
What about you?
What about you?
What do you got?
What about me? I mean, what you said, Jay, about Danielle is interesting. I think, she does have a lot of the tools to be able to knock it out of the park, but I have a hard time picking against Mal in a workout that combines these things. She's just the engine component to me. And so the other one that kind of pops to mind is Emma, actually.
Carey or Lawson?
No, Emma Carey, actually. Just longer workouts, anything more than 10 minutes to me. Emma puts head down and goes to a place that is a little ugly. And I think she's probably able to sustain some things that other athletes aren't able to from a physical standpoint. Plus, she's training with Danielle, so she has somebody go head to head with that may be able to push her a little bit. On the guy side, I see Vellner. Vellner, to me, kind of has the tools to be able to kind of keep pace with the big boys when it comes to the row and the barbell, since they're singles, not super heavy. and his gymnastics background, he's going to be able to do some significant chunks of toes to bar and muscle up. So I would expect a big score from Pat.
Nice
point. Good point.
Yep. All right, fellas. Jay, thanks for the time, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Before we jumped on, Jay just had another baby. Jay has a dad of 3 and had to watch all 3 of them yesterday for the first time. So I'm amazed that you're alive and awake and capable of getting on with us.
Right
so
now. He's blacked out.
Yeah.
I'm looking at myself in this video screen like, man, my bags are insane right now. Like,
welcome to my world. That's the way I look all the time.
Without kids.
Without kids.
Well, thanks for the time, guys. Appreciate it. We'll follow up next week with everybody's scores. We'll see how you guys did. And next week, we'll be back with 23-2 and another special guest. And we'll talk it through. Thanks for the time, everybody. Enjoy it.